they need. Oh, great. The robots are taking over. And, you know, so to that end, my advice for you is really the best skill that you can bring to a career in marketing is that interpersonal communication and just knowing how to get your point across clearly and ultimately kindly, I think is really everything. So I'd like to move on to the team now. We're going to give you a little bit of insight into our business and work from the creative side. So our designer, Daniel Tack, will introduce himself.
Hey, thanks, Thayer. Yeah, hi, I'm Daniel. I'm a UX designer for the Beats by Dre team here in Los Angeles. I've been in the ad industry for a little under 2 years now. I kind of have like a similar story with Thayer where I started somewhere else, but I'll get to that shortly. If you're wondering what UX is in the first place, it stands for user experience. And it's the practice of making our designs to be functionally sound, as well as easy for people to use. So a lot of user research and strategy and visual design go into this very broad field that is called UX. So I've been doing that for everything and anything for the Beats team for the last year. At Elephant, and it's been going great so far. So going back to the career path, which brings me to my story, is that like Thayer, I didn't start out in a creative field right out of college. I majored in English and psychology and decided to become a writer for local newspapers up in Northern California. And there I learned a lot about, how to do research, how to strategically approach, say a prompt, and then, do layout designs and things of that nature. So eventually found myself pivoting into a career in UX because I was a little bit more interested in working in technology. And to piggyback off what Thayer was saying, in terms of bringing a diverse background, don't shy away from anything that makes you unique. It's hard to argue like how, I bring my English major into a creative field like UX, but you totally can. And so the ad industry really values a wide breadth of knowledge that you can bring to the table. Just an example of what I was working on was in the center of the screen here is a newspaper clip from an article we did on Billy Cox, who was or is the last remaining bassist for the Jimi Hendrix Experience or band back in the day. So, bringing that kind of diversity is awesome and don't shy away from it. That brings me to the quote I included here, which is by Bill Burnett, who was the executive director at Stanford's design school. He wrote a book called Designing Your Life, which is a way to approach, career wayfinding by using the design process. So, prototyping things you like to do, testing the waters, there's a philosophy in design that the first answer is never the right answer. So, it's a process coming out of college. It's a tough process for sure. And this quote here that really speaks to how everyone has their own timeline. We often are pressured by our own expectations, parents, family, peers, that all kind of makes the wayfinding process anxiety ridden and difficult and overwhelming sometimes. So my advice is to bring that diversity, and then when you bring that diversity, make sure to respect your own timeline, to be patient, and to stick the course. So yeah, that's pretty much what I have for you today.
Thank you, Daniel. And now, I don't know why this isn't moving. Now to move on, we have another really exciting member of our team to introduce, Jose Tavar. I've worked with both Daniel and Jose since they started at Elephant, and I think they bring a lot of really interesting and unique experiences to the table. So Jose, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all. All right, so my name is Jose Tovar. I am from Colombia. I've been working here for around 1 year. I got here to the US in January. Not the best year to come here, but anyway, I've enjoyed so far. Working with an amazing team. All the people in the company are being really awesome with me. So yeah, I've been working as a web developer for more than 8 years, and I got involved in this industry because I always liked interaction. Like I always like movement. When you see colors and things moving on the screen, I really like video games. Video games have been what have driven me into this. And then with the past of the years, I've seen how the web has evolved into more like in a more rich experience for everyone. So my job here is to basically put everything together, visual designs, uh, user experience requirements, accessibility. And yes, accessibility, I mean, like we want to make the web to be used by everyone. Everyone should be capable of using the products that we build, the things that we do. So I really like that. And one of the things that I like the most about this industry is that I have the opportunity of uh, trying different challenges. Each project, each client is a new challenge, is a new opportunity to learn, a new opportunity to implement things that you might have as a developer. These kind of experiences are great for us and great for me, and I can say that I've been working in the right industry. I enjoy what I do, and if you like different kind of challenges, this is the right industry for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jose. I really like that advice. Next, we're going to move on to product management, which is a really cool title and an interesting role within the agency world, because a lot of times, and certainly in my experience, you don't always have the opportunity to get a product manager. It is a unique position and something that I think tends to be very hard to find. So we're incredibly lucky to have Melissa Ng join us today and also be part of the team at Elephant.
Thanks, Thayer. So hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. Like Thayer said, my name's Melissa. I work in product management. So I work really closely with both the creative team and the engineering team to sort of like help figure out how ideas are built and eventually how they come to life, how they grow and iterate. So at Elephant, I work mainly on like the Apple and Chevron accounts. Like a few other people on this call, I definitely did not go to school for product or for advertising. I was a poli-sci major and wanted to be a lawyer when I went to college. And then I took my first law class and realized that was not the path for me. So I wound up getting into product management kind of through my time working in account management at Shazam. That's kind of my story. I had clients constantly ask me like, why couldn't they do cool things with the app? And I just didn't know why we couldn't. So I started working with our product and engineering teams there to figure out what we could offer, how we can like skin the app and make it a really great sort of user and brand experience and merge the two worlds. And then that's kind of how I wound up here at Elephant. So kind of my best advice for anyone here is don't be afraid of failing. In product, we just say failing is like a good opportunity for iteration because you always want everything to grow and you want to base it off of things that you learn. So you will always course correct and then just keep growing in the right direction and then you'll find your way eventually.
That's great advice, Melissa, although I've never seen you fail. So maybe
just aren't looking hard enough.
Awesome. And now for a little bit of an introduction to the theoretical side. Our strategist, Theo Suarez, he's a group strategy director out here for Elephant West Coast. And I think strategy can mean a lot of different things within various industries, but he's going to tell us a little bit about what it means for us.
Cool. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Theo. I'm in strategy team here on the West Coast. And to Thayer's point, you know, strategy is a word that is used a lot and everyone, you know, wants to talk about strategy and being strategic and all that. But, you know, the the field or the role of a strategist, you know, whether you're talking about advertising or making products or, you know, creating new businesses or whatever field it is really about defining the problem and defining a solution. That's it. You know, those are the two things that you need to do. And you know, being single-minded and being decisive on those is where it becomes really interesting and really challenging. I would say the key skill set, though, is, again, like everyone here, I didn't go to school for advertising, is being able to draw conclusions between things that are not obvious or that maybe other people don't see. And so, you know, what really plays into that skill set is having different interests, different backgrounds, different experiences, different perspectives. You know, when the same ideas keep getting applied to the same problems, you don't come up with new solutions. You need to come up with new ways to solve problems. And that's what strategy is all about. So real quick,
I was a slip of the wrist.
Real quick, my story, you know, again, similar to many of the folks you'll hear from, I studied comparative humanities, which I thought was interesting at the time because the whole point was like taking different topics and trying to find commonalities and just create, you know, arguments based on those. But it actually turned out to be a perfect fit for strategy. And when I graduated school, I didn't know anything about the creative fields or marketing, but Mad Men was popular on TV, and I had friends who lived in New York, so I moved to New York and just submitted to Craigslist ads and temp agencies and whatever I can do until I met some people in advertising and kind of got, you know, connections, and then eventually got in the door and found my way that way. But again, it was just sort of being attracted to using that skill set and however I could. My quote here is from one of my first bosses. He's the head of strategy at RGA now, but he used to say to all the young people at the agency, especially in strategy, that you know, the exciting thing about the creative industry is like, oh, it's Nike and it's, you know, it's these cool brands and these cool things that people use, and that is super exciting about the industry. But you know, when you're starting out, the most important thing is to learn, and you learn the most from good people. So, you know, starting out, obviously pursue, you know, the most exciting job you can get in companies and projects, but you know, don't worry so much about being cool in the industry, because when you learn from great people, you propel and you learn, and that really sets the foundation for doing cool things later. When you're really, you know, when you're really good at what you do and have a great network. So yeah, I would just say, you know, diverse skill set, diverse perspectives is perfect for strategy, and finding some people you can learn from.
Awesome, great advice. And I think we'll probably come back to that a little bit later, because I'm sure there are going to be a lot of questions around mentorship and how to find the right person.
Cool.
So now from a word from our executive side, the executive branch of our elephant government, you know, Kevin is a really interesting role within the company, because he's not only our executive creative director, which is just as important as it sounds, but he really straddles a lot of different areas of the work that we do. So not only from a elephant, you know, West Coast executive leadership perspective, also from a creative department perspective, especially when it comes to experience design. And then, you know, also just being a hands-on member of the various teams that he participates in. So Kevin, I'll let you introduce yourself a little more.
Hello, thanks there. I'm Kevin, as Thayer said. So I'll get right into my story. So the thing that got me into doing this creative work was a frustration with the digital experiences that I saw out in the world. And that led me to try to find a way to work on them. I joined an agency that was more a traditional agency doing television and print ads, and got my foot in the door there, and eventually moved over into doing work in the digital space. I used the New York Times here not because it was a frustrating experience, although it was, but the redesign of this that I worked on in 2007, once that launched, that was the first time my dad understood what I did. I think he thought I was in IT before that. And so it was a big moment in my career where my dad finally knew the work I did and what happened out in the world. And it took years to get to the point where I could work on something that big. Of course, his response was, why did the navigation move? I can't find anything. But the thing that brought me there is really this, and actually I have a very similar background as others, that I studied literature and philosophy in school, which are not disconnected to the things that we do. Being able to write well and being able to tell a story and make an argument about an idea is extremely important to my job that I get to use every single day. But the reason I ended up there was because I found something that I was passionate about. It might have come out of a frustration I saw in the world, but it caused me to want to do something about this thing that I saw in the world. And it was a topic I was already thinking about. Why are these websites so bad? Why is everything so hard to use in the modern world? If we're going to be looking at the screens, can't they be better? So it's benefited me to feed that passion, where I see things that I'm already thinking about how these things need to be fixed. And now I get to have a job where I think about that all the time, which is very convenient for my brain. So that's how I got where I am.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate that. Also, I didn't really know that you worked on the New York Times redesign, so we have you to thank for how we get our news today. Moving on, so the business side of the work that we do is incredibly critical to keeping everything together, keeping everything moving, and ultimately the account management side of things is the portal, is the conduit through which we communicate to all of our clients. So Lauren Maselli, who's a client lead here at Elephant in LA, is going to tell us a little bit about herself and the work that she does with clients.
Yeah, thanks Thayer. Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm a client lead here at Elephant, as Thayer mentioned. So similar role to what Thayer does, but I'm working directly with the clients, building relationships with them, making sure that our work that we're producing is delivering on the business needs and what the clients need from us. And my story here, I have a picture of my mom and I, because my mom actually worked in advertising as well. And so she kind of was the first person who exposed me to the industry as like a career that is an option. I feel like advertising and marketing isn't necessarily something that you learn about in school, or when you're a kid. Everyone knows that you can be a teacher or a doctor or whatever else. So she kind of exposed me to that as a career option. And then, like everyone else, I did not study marketing or advertising in school. I was actually a journalism major. So similar to what a few other people have said, really learned how to communicate clearly and write in a clear way. So I think that that's really kind of helped me in my advertising career as well. And then my advice is really just to speak up. I think this is kind of similar to what someone else has said, but working at a creative industry, I think good ideas can come from anyone. You don't have to be the most senior person in the room. You don't have to be the person with the most experience or with a specific background. I think the cool thing is that, we can all come up with these great ideas that come to life and people see on the New York Times or on an Absolute ad or wherever else. So yeah, I think that's everything.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lauren. Appreciate it. And I'm happy to have you on this as well. Similar to account management, project management is another really critical part of our business and how we operate from a day-to-day perspective. Project management is definitely distinct from account management as it is also distinct from product management. So Shelby Dunlap here, who's a project management lead, is going to tell us a little bit about her and her background and sort of the difference in what she does every day.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so as Thayer mentioned, work very closely with product and client partners. But my role is more to make sure we're following the budget, to make sure we're scheduling the meetings, the timelines, everything's set, the team has what they need, a lot of note taking, which works for type A brains like mine. I actually did go to journalism school for advertising, so I don't know if I'm the only person on the call who did, but that's my background. I was choosing between PR and ad, And, I just really liked the ideas of how advertising could be applicable in real life. I remember one of our first projects was tackling a climate change issue and using strategy and design and communication. I just found it really interesting and kind of fell in love with it that way. My piece of advice is your network. Your network is your greatest asset. I can't tell you how nice it is to be able to reach out to friends from college, from past jobs when you're looking for new jobs. So just making sure that you keep in touch with your contacts. They'll help you on later in life.
Awesome. I think that's really great advice. Moving on to another very important side of our business, without which we would have no money and therefore no jobs, the finance side of things. We have Marcel here, who's our senior financial analyst for Elephant in the West Coast. Marcel's going to give us a little bit of his background as well.
Hey everyone, so I'm Marcel. I'm from Indonesia. I moved here when I was 12, been living in the Valley since then. So my story is blank because I didn't know what to do with my life in college. I went a semester at CSU. I dropped out, didn't go to school for a semester, went to community college, find out about the air traffic controller, and all they need was a degree. So I went into econ because I thought it was very easy. And then I didn't end up doing econ or air traffic controller. I did a lot of jobs before this, from selling cleaning product on the gas station, accounting, HR, and I finally end up here in advertising. And I never knew this existed, and I'm glad that I'm here. And also, finance in advertising, there's two sides to it. There's the client side, and there's also the FP&A. What I do, I'm on the client side, with which I talk to the PM, sometimes the client. So my job is basically to connect them to the accounting side and the FP&A. And it's fun. And so I guess my advice is just be happy what you have, and just keep learning. That's what it is. I didn't know, I was looking for a quote. I couldn't find anything but this. So yeah, and I'm shy too, so I'm like super nervous right now. So if you guys are shy, get into finance. You don't have to talk to people.
Marcel, what are you talking about? I talk to you every day. And he's never shy. Marcel, we would be nothing without you. He really is.
That's all.
Finance is it's like so much the unsung heroes of the agency world, because I think having the experience and the ability to, if you have a brain for numbers, if you like numbers, if you like working in Excel, there's definitely an art to it, and Marcel has absolutely mastered that. So appreciate you and all you do. And finally, we're going to move on to the people side of things, human resources. You're probably more or less familiar with the term, but understanding what an HR director does in an agency context, I think is really special, because so much of what we do as a business is about the dynamism and the chemistry between our team. We sell us as a group. We all work together. Everyone on this call, by and large, works together in some combination on a daily basis, and we sell that to the client. So having someone from an HR perspective who really knows how to build the dynamic of a team is incredibly crucial. And there are a lot of people skills at work here. So I'll let Allison give her little intro.
Thank you. I'm Allison. I am the HR director at Elephant, and I live in San Francisco. You've probably seen a pattern here, and my story doesn't break the mold. I always say I just sort of landed in HR and in advertising. In college, I majored in psychology, and after I graduated, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. So I spent the next few years just working random jobs that I was connected to through friends. And the last one was for a fashion designer, and I decided pretty quickly that field wasn't for me. So I went in search of another job, and I ended up finding my career kind of by accident. So I got an opportunity through a temp agency to work as an HR coordinator at an ad agency in LA, which is where I was living at the time. And I really quickly grew to love HR, and particularly within the ad industry. So that temp job soon turned into a full-time gig, and now I've been doing HR for almost 10 years now. So I'm not very creative myself, but I love being around creative people, which is what I get to do with working with these people every day. And I love agency culture. You can probably tell the dynamic just by how we talk to each other and how we present ourselves. The way I think about HR is I take care of our people at Elephant so they can take care of business. And I could spend a lot of time telling you about my day to day, but to keep things moving, I'll tell you my advice to you, and that it's never too late to revise. So I remember feeling super overwhelmed after college, questioning what I should do. Like, what am I passionate about? What if I try something and I hate it or I'm not good at it? Like, I really felt like I had to commit to a career choice, like for life. And you really don't. I didn't get into HR and in advertising until I was 25, after working in very different industries, very different fields, and finding out those weren't right for me. So the fact that you found this program and you're hearing us talk today actually really puts you far ahead of where I was at your stage in life. I wasn't doing these kinds of things. And this is really the time to explore and take some risks. Like, you never have to feel stuck. You can always shift, restart, try something new, and eventually you'll find the right thing, like I did.
Awesome. Thank you, Allison. Really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for giving your inputs. Those were great. We're going to move on now and open it up, do some question and answers. I'll give you guys a minute to think of some questions if you haven't already. Populate them in the chat, send them to Caroline Jackson. You can either do them publicly or privately. She'll be collecting them. And while you're doing that or thinking about things, just feel free to keep them coming. I'll start by asking some of our team members some questions that I think you probably might have, but maybe didn't think to ask. So the first one, I wanted to go to Theo and really circle back to the idea of mentorship and talk about a little bit about how maybe you find a mentor or any advice you have in the mentorship space for how to really connect with someone maybe who's older, who has a little bit more experience in the field that you're trying to get into.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing would be to just be as interested as you can be in the field and see who's writing things. I think the beauty of social media and reading the trades and reading magazines and Twitter and other things is you can get a sense of who's talking about what. And LinkedIn, people are writing articles all the time, and you can kind of put together lists of at least the types of people that you'd like to work with or work for or learn from, and kind of narrow in, like, okay, these 5 people are writing really interesting articles. Where do they work? What kind of agencies or companies are they? What fields are they in? What industries are they in? And you can use just public, the public discourse, the conversation around an industry to start finding the types of people that you're really drawn to and that you're inspired by, and sort of narrowing that way. And the other thing would be, when you're interviewing or talking to different companies, just asking about, who would my boss be, or who's the head of the department? What is their style? How do they like to hire people? What are they looking for? How do they work together? Are there programs? And just trying to understand, with different job opportunities or companies, are there programs? Is there a person there that you'd really want to gravitate to and to learn from? And then within companies, I think it can be as simple as just talking to someone and saying, hey, I'm really interested in this thing you wrote or that presentation you gave, and just start building relationships like you would, with a professor going to office hours or something. And if you hit it off with that person, it becomes a thing that builds, and then all of a sudden you have these really interesting relationships. So I think you have to put in a little bit of research and ask the right questions. But then, I've found that when someone shows some interest in what you're doing and takes the time to recognize, hey, I'm paying attention to what you're saying, and it's interesting to me. Could you tell me more? Like, 9 times out of 10, people will go above and beyond to respond to that. You know, if you just put in a little bit of effort and interest to kind of start the conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Theo. I think that's super great advice. I wanted to move on to Lauren for a second, if I can call on you. You know, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your first job out of college and, you know, maybe how you found it, how long you stayed there, and any tips you have for those on the call who might be transitioning, you know, within the next year from academic environment into a work environment.
Sure. Yeah. So I went to college in Chicago. So my first job was also in Chicago. And really, I think it was at an agency called Schaefer Condon Carter. It's an independent agency in Chicago. And I worked on Kerrygold butter and cheese there. That was my big client, which I highly recommend. They really sold me. But so that was a really fun account to work on. I got the job partially through just networking, honestly. You know, I went to a million career fairs during college. And I also had been, you know, in the summers prior to graduating, I had gotten a few internships in kind of marketing related roles. You know, some were a little bit further away from account management and what I do now, and then some were a little bit closer to that. And then the other big thing that I did that I think really helped build the experience to get me that first job was I worked in the marketing side of a food magazine that was like a student organization. It was called Spoon Magazine at Northwestern. So I kind of I would sell ads to local businesses in Evanston to help fund the magazine. And so I think doing those kind of you know, student organizations in school in things that are related to what you're interested in really can kind of helped me build that experience. And then, you know, just I think someone else mentioned networking. I think that's huge in marketing, just going to events where you're meeting people who have similar interests to you and keeping in touch with them. I think it's, you know, even easier to do now with social media and LinkedIn and all of that. That was kind of how I found my first job, was someone at one of those events. You know, I sent them a LinkedIn message and then they gave me an interview, and then I got the internship job. And then I was an intern for maybe three months after I graduated from college until I got promoted to a full-time role. I think I stayed there about a year, and I left honestly just because I wanted to move to New York. So I kind of leveraged that first job into another job, which allowed me to move to where I wanted to be. Thayer, did you ask me any other questions within this that I missed?
No, that was
Okay.
great. It was perfect. Now I want to move over to Allison for a second. We had a comment come in regarding HR specifically, and so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about transitioning to a job in HR, obviously for those folks who might not have any prior experience in the field, but have an interest in human resources, and what a transition might look like for someone who has work experience but nothing agency or HR related, and what types of things you would look for if you were hiring for HR, or what types of things you would recommend for someone who's trying to get their foot in the door from an HR perspective.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think Thayer, you said it earlier, a lot of skills are translatable. So things that I knew how to do or even was familiar with in previous jobs, I found I was utilizing the same skill or even doing something really similar. In one of my previous jobs, I worked within the PR division of Disney ABC, which sounds completely different, but I did a lot of things with their freelancers, with getting them set up and paid, and just weird things that oddly connected to HR. And at the time I had no idea, because when I went to college, I didn't even know, I didn't even know kind of HR at all. I knew it as this old personnel, as I remember movies when I was a kid is what they would call it. And it felt old and outdated. But once I started through the temp agency, I started at my old job. And because I came in at sort of a more entry level role anyway, I was doing a lot more administrative stuff, and I found that like the things on my resume that I had done at that previous job, they were like, oh yeah, we do that, something similar here, or oh, you can do that, then that means you can probably do this too. And so I think knowing whatever the role is, knowing what they want and being able to speak about what you've done in that context really helps. For HR, I mean, HR can be super broad in general. So what I do here for Elephant is everything from like benefits to, to working on people getting raises and promotions, to immigration. And I've done a million trillion visas in my lifetime in HR, and to employee relations stuff and helping people, when they go on a leave because they're welcoming a new child into their family or things like that. So it kind of runs the whole gambit. But there's also companies where you can get into like a really niche part of HR. So you might be interested in like one of those facets, and you can go and grow like within that one lane. So it kind of depends, like if you're, what sort of where you gravitate to. But I would say definitely to come over into HR, if you can find someone like on LinkedIn or anyone like me, who you can talk to about what it's about, and then they help you translate your resume into something that speaks HR. And you could do this for any other role, like account executive, you could do the same thing, or finance. And then once you're in and you start doing like a lot of what I've done and like what I do now, I learned by doing over the years. I didn't read a book about it. I didn't go and get like extra school. I've taken classes here and there and webinars and things, but really, truly like the experience is what gets you kind of further along. So if you can get your foot in the door by meeting people, if you can help, like if you can make your resume speak that language a little bit by utilizing what you've already done or what you know how to do and turning it into something that connects really directly to that role. Once you're in, it's really easy to like build, make your way up within the field.
Awesome. Thanks,
I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, I think it did. I would love to work in HR. Hire me. We'll talk. So I have a question. For, I think, Daniel, I'd love it if you could give us your perspective, given that so many of us didn't go to school for advertising and marketing, but there is a specific skill set required for some of the more creative and technical roles within an agency. I was wondering if you could tell everyone about any classes that you took either during college or post-college that helped prepare you for a career in design.
Yeah, I get a lot of questions sometimes about, how much your background matters when you come into a new design field. And I feel like there's a couple of ways to approach that, right? A lot of focus or emphasis when trying to find that first design job is about your portfolio. So if you can, participate in pro bono projects, internships, hackathons, anything to give your portfolio some kind of substance to it, something that you can talk about in your interviews, is key and should take a good amount of time to get ready when you're applying for jobs. As far as like classes or supplementary education, there are boot camps out there that are really popular these days. These are like short sprints with a cohort or classmates that run you through like the full design process from research to, say, prototyping. And that's actually the path that I took, and found that it was useful in terms of finding that network to start out with that we've all discussed. So yeah, just two ways to figure that out would be kind of being like a self-starter or going along with a group of people or like a class.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's really great advice. I've definitely heard of people in, the portfolio building part of their career sometimes just coming up with stuff on their own, or there's a lot of websites that offer kind of like brief prompts to get those creative juices flowing. So there's definitely a lot of digital resources out there if you say didn't have the opportunity to take a formal class, or you don't really know where to start. I think just flexing your creative muscles, you know, using stuff you find on the internet is also a really great way to just have something to show for what your perspective is and what types of things that you like to do. Question for Marcel, to put you on the spot, but I was wondering, and there was a question that came in about this. Do you have any tips about finding support when, you know, you're maybe not coming from an environment that has a lot of like schooling opportunities or opportunities around marketing and advertising? Like how did you ultimately find your way? Do you have any ideas of organizations or classes or anything like that that would help direct people
To finance?
Yeah, well, to the agency world.
Oh man, it's a tough question, especially for me, because I mean, to the agency world, I was just lucky, honestly. I was working in accounting, and then I didn't like what I was doing, and then I saw a listing in Indeed. I was just like, okay, you know what? Let's just apply for this. Very lucky that they got back to me, um, and I guess that's how I got into the agency world. As for, I mean,
No,
classes was for finance. I mean,
I think that's helpful. You know, I think that brings up a really good point. Sometimes it can feel when you're applying for jobs like you're throwing your resume into a black hole and you're just sort of like hitting send, and I think that can be a challenge psychologically also to overcome. Like, how do I make myself stand out? How do I find the right people? So I think in terms of resources, you know, LinkedIn is a really great way to connect with people. And I would encourage you all to go on LinkedIn, research companies, and link request people whose careers sound interesting to you. The worst thing that they can do is say no, but by and large, and I've had people, you know, cold reach out to me, by and large, I think people are really willing to help. And moreover, people are always willing to talk to you about their experience. And help connect their experience to your experience. People, it's a principle of psychology. People love to talk about themselves. So LinkedIn, I think, is the best advice that I can give you in terms of you don't know where to start and you are looking for a resource to connect with people. Like I said, the worst thing someone can say is no, and I haven't seen that happen very often. So, you know, definitely put yourself out there and don't be afraid to apply online. Don't be afraid to follow up with people via LinkedIn or, you know, after you connect with them using their email, because ultimately it is really about building that relationship. And I think asking a question, asking help of someone and asking that guidance about, you know, how did you get started and how might I be able to get into the industry is, you know, it's a pretty easy question to answer, I think, for those of us who are in it. So another question that came through, Kevin, I was wondering if you might just take a minute and talk to us about how Elephant handles pro bono work and the types of work that we've been doing for clients who, you know, maybe have charitable efforts or can't necessarily afford agency fees.
Sure. So right now we're working on a program that is basically a project to reinvent the brand and approach for All-Star Code in New York, which is basically a coding boot camp for groups that are you know, marginalized in myriad ways. So they are not the most well known in the category, and so we're working with them on a project to reinvent the way their brand is communicated and the way their website is organized. When we do pro bono projects, we run them as if they are just like any other project. And I think that's the most important thing, that they're not side projects. I think we even know in our own lives when things are sort of considered an adjunct to our current focus, they don't get done in the same way. So our approach to pro bono work and our approach to any project that might be an investment in some way is to handle it as we would whether it were Apple or Beats. So it's scheduled and staffed and in the same way that we would for any of those projects. And we recognize that it's an investment, but we also use it as an internal learning opportunity to have different kinds of people who haven't worked together. Maybe sometimes it's a cross-office collaboration. We might pair up certain individuals or younger employees that haven't worked on certain kinds of projects and give them exposure to it. So I think we want everybody to learn and benefit from the process, knowing that it's not going to be a financial benefit, but it's something that can really get, especially with creative teams. I mean, you'll never find a lack of interest from the creative group, or it probably goes for all of the group strategy and accounts as well. When there's a project like that has a potential to have a real impact on people's lives, those are the projects that people always want to be a part of and be involved in. So the good thing about it is they're very easy to staff internally as well.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Appreciate that. Question moving now to Melissa. Wondering if you feel that it was easy when you were getting into product management, and or would be easy for you if you were to, do a career change later on, to apply your skills to other industries or from other industries to what you do now.
Yeah, that's a good question. Product is interesting because no one really goes to like undergrad for product. And it was really just something like when I was in college, I had no idea what product management even was and only learned about it as I was on the job. So I think for people trying to break into product, it's really great to like get to know people on the team, understand what they do, make those connections, ask those questions. That's how I really got into it. I was fortunate enough to work at a really small company and have a really great product team. And the VP of product was actually super close with me and really kind of took me under her wing and was sort of that mentor for me to get into the industry. But I do think that there are a ton of transferable skills to get into product. Like I started my career in project management and then moved into account management. And then those two things kind of being like super type A and having to know where everything is in a project. And also being able to really speak to like clients and speak to business stakeholders. I think those two things really lended itself to making it easier for me to get into product. I've also been really blessed with great engineers like Jose, who love sort of explaining those technical aspects to people and really love breaking down all of those sort of finer details of how things are really built to help me kind of understand and hone that skill. So I think the combination of all those things are really great, but it is actually a lot of soft skills that really kind of speak to what I would think is a successful product person.
Thanks, Melissa, appreciate it. We have time for one more question. So I'm gonna go to Shelby really quickly before we do a little closeout. So Shelby, I was wondering, I know that even though you're not in HR, you do have often the opportunity to interview a lot of people that come through to work on your team. So was wondering if there are any personal or individual skills that you look for when you're trying to bring someone onto the team across any discipline.
Yeah, that's a good question. Skills is tough. I mean, skills depends on the role too and the level. Obviously, there's different expectations for different levels. But if I was interviewing someone for a project management role, I try to ask a lot about just how they approach problems. So like what their take is, and like if they have an issue, have them run me through how they solve it. Of course, like I mentioned, taking notes and meetings and being like orderly is important. So trying to understand like if they're reactive or more proactive. There are like some skills, like you can say like, oh, have you ever used Basecamp or Smartsheet? But that stuff in the grand scheme, like you can learn that so quickly. I think it's more about how you approach problems, how you solve problems, and kind of honestly a lot about personality. in terms of like helping your teammates and being willing to solve things and not get frustrated at the slightest changes?
Awesome. I knew that would be a good question for you because Shelby is definitely someone, and this is really important to any project management role, who keeps her cool, who is highly organized, and like, you know, personality really is super important for any of the internal, any of our roles, but especially in internal operations, because you're dealing with managing people and timelines in really high stress situations. So, so yeah, I would echo that. The personality and being able to sort of keep calm under pressure is great. We have about 1 minute left. So just in closing, I wanted to talk to you really quickly about our commitment to change. Obviously, within the past several months, there's been a huge, I think, a rallying cry and call for everyone from a personal level as well as a corporate level to commit to doing better, being better, learning, and taking a stand against racism, and trying to implement policies and strategies that will actually impact change. Oh, sorry, I lost my camera. Impact change, hopefully not only within our industry, but across the world. So Elephant has definitely made that commitment to our clients, to our partners, to our community, and to our employees. So if you want to learn more about what specifically we'll be doing to sort of further these efforts, there's definitely more information contained at our website on elephant.is. And if there are any questions that you guys have for us, I want to thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you for the time. We really love having you, and of course would welcome any additional follow-up questions or any comments that you might have about the session. So my email's here. I think Gus can also put you in touch with me if you forget it or don't write it down. And welcome any comments or feedback that you have. Thank you so much. Gus, I don't know if you had anything.
No, yeah, I just wanted to thank all of you for this great presentation. I know our students had a lot of great questions, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of follow up. So I'm sure they'll be reaching out to you soon, and asking about opportunities, informational interviews. So if you all are open to that, I'm sure that our students would love to take advantage of opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely welcome it. And like I said in the beginning, I know it's a really scary time, not only in the world, but for our country, and being in college and sort of not knowing what the next step is obviously like very stressful. So we have all been there. We can definitely appreciate that. And we're just here to help. So whether it's entry-level opportunities or any sort of guidance that we can help you, or advice, please feel free to reach out. I'll try to get you in touch with the right people, and here to help. We really, really appreciate you guys joining us today.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you, all of you. Elephant, you all are amazing. I appreciate it, and I know our students really do as well. Thank you so much for your time. Definitely, I know you don't have to do this, but we appreciate it so much.
No, of course, we love doing it. So thank you so much, and have a great night, everyone.
All right, good night,
Thank you.
everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.